Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where ever since my review of Beauty and the Beast, the new one, we've been having a spirited discussion, some of us, as to the reality of its Oscar chances. And what do you know? Yesterday, the Hollywood Reporter said that Disney is already on it, and it's going well. However, there's another mainstream film that's just come out that's also trying to bolster its Oscar chances already, and that is Get Out. Isn't that fantastic? Jason Blum is a producer on that film, and he was also a producer on Whiplash, Damien Chazelle's first major Oscar play, which didn't do so bad, for itself. It was no La La Land, but it was the beginning. So Blum has those connections. So he's already trying to lay the groundwork for Get Out, and they're having Academy screenings this week. They've asked Academy members to come and see the film. They've rented theaters both on the West and East Coast in New York and Los Angeles to try and get them to watch the film and get behind it. That's very exciting, I'm sure, not only for many of you, but also Jordan Peele. Oh, how the tides have changed. Hollywood's a crazy business. You just got to stay alive. You got to keep your career alive, and then there's always a chance you can turn things around. As I said, he went from being the lesser half of Key and Peele to now being an incredibly successful writer-director who might actually have an Oscar contender. So I think they're putting it up, they think, for two areas. I think it really only has a shot in Best Original Screenplay. I think it has a very strong shot there, actually. But then Best Picture is something that they feel, Get Out, the Get Out team feels they have a chance at. And to that I say, get out of here. I think that too many movies are going to come out by the end of the year, and I think Best Picture, it's just like Deadpool. If Deadpool couldn't get Best Picture, I don't see how Get Out could get Best Picture. It would have to have a brilliant Oscar campaign, which I'm not ruling out, but it would be a significant hurdle. But screenplay is very doable. Now back to Beauty and the Beast. They've already had some Academy screenings in New York and Los Angeles, where the bulk of Academy voters live. And word is it played very well with the crowd. I believe the Hollywood Reporter quote was, blew the roof off of the theater. Oh, Disney's smiling. So maybe that Rotten Tomatoes score isn't actually too much of a hurdle. Some of you pointed out that there have been films here and there that have managed to go on to be strong Oscar contenders despite low Rotten Tomatoes scores. And I think this is one instance where how old-fashioned the Academy voters are might actually work in a movie's favor. Because Beauty and the Beast is a real throwback film in terms of musicals, etc. Well, La La Land's very forward-thinking, but it was such a Valentine to Hollywood that, of course, Academy voters liked it as well. Not as much as Moonlight, but they've done their reality check. Maybe now they're ready for some frosting. As I said on Movie Math yesterday, somebody described Beauty and the Beast as a wedding cake musical, and I think that's an excellent description. Also, what's been pegged as the top song that's in contention for Best Original Song? Evermore. A couple of you were saying, oh no, Grace, I think it's How Do You Make a Moment Last Forever because it's Celine Dion. And I'm like, no way. They don't even sing that song in the movie. They have a couple bars here and there, but it's really an end credits song. Evermore, I'm telling you, it's the song. And again, as I said on Movie Map, I hope Dan Stevens is practicing because if he was auto-tuned, I think that's going to hurt its chances to win. I know Josh Groban sings a mean version all on his own, with his, professional singing voice over the end credits as well. But, it has to be sung well, I think, in the actual movie to be a legitimate contender to win. Not, maybe it can still be nominated if it's proven to be auto-tuned. And, obviously they had to lower his voice because he's a beast, but he's going to have to prove that he can sing the song. So that's the first story of the day. And what do you think? Are you excited about Get Out and Beauty and the Beast already being, putting out strong Oscar plays? Are you rooting for them? Do you think it's ridiculous and you're hoping the Academy sees through it? Write your thoughts down below. Then, speaking of live-action fairy tales, I was kind of thinking, I was like, wow, Beauty and the Beast is so successful, Guy Ritchie could probably get anybody who wanted to play the genie in his live-action Aladdin. And maybe Robert Downey Jr. would be interested. They, of course, have a relationship from the Sherlock Holmes movies that they've made together. However, Robert Downey Jr. is really itching to get into a live-action fairy tale because he has been trying to do Pinocchio for a while now. But Dr. Dolittle is ready to go, so Robert Downey Jr. has signed on to do that. Now, Dr. Dolittle has actually a pretty rich history as a film. It's also was a series of children's books. It's not really a household name. Think of it almost as like the less popular male Mary Poppins, right? So anyway, Dr. Dolittle is a veterinarian who says he can talk to the animals, and the whole movie's supposed to be proving that he can. So anyway, Rex Harrison originated the role, and if you don't know who Rex Harrison is, do yourself a favor and educate yourself. His best movies, in my opinion, are not Dr. Dolittle, I'm sorry to say, but My Fair Lady, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, and also Midnight Lace is a really good thriller. And interestingly enough, Seth MacFarlane is also a Rex Harrison fan. Once you see Rex Harrison's work, it's hard not to be a Rex Harrison fan. But Seth MacFarlane based the baby Stewie character on Family Guy, at least partially off of the work of Rex Harrison. All right, so anyway, Eddie Murphy then later took on the role, first in 1998, and that movie made $294 million worldwide in 1998, so that's very good. And then the sequel did lesser in 2001 with just $176 million, so that's a loss of over $100 million. And then it had a couple direct-to-video sequels. It's time has passed, I guess they feel. It's been 16 years. And the first Dr. Dolittle has some pedigree. It was nominated for 9 Oscars, unbelievably, including Best Picture. And it won for Best Effects, back when it was just Best Effects, because they didn't have visual effects with computers. And also Best Original Song for Talk to the Animals. Rex Harrison is a wonderful talk singer. He talks through his songs, but he's really good at it. So I guess that pedigree interested Stephen Gaghan to write and direct the film. And now he, of course, made a name for himself writing the screenplay for Steven Soderbergh's Traffic. Then he wrote and directed Syriana and most recently Gold, which was a pretty good movie, but nobody saw it. That was the Matthew McConaughey movie, and I was fortunate enough to go to the junket and do interviews for that. But I think that the Dr. Dolittle role is right in Robert Downey Jr.'s wheelhouse. You can see him talking. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't need anybody there. He's a show into himself, and that's the way he prefers it, actually. So I can see him doing this, but sometimes I worry that maybe it's too in his wheelhouse, that he would maybe have him, be a little bit play to his weaknesses and but maybe things people don't like about Robert Downey Jr. It's a tough spot. Although I do think he's an excellent good Rex Harrison equivalent, right? For those of you who know Rex Harrison. Also, I think that this just goes to show you're going to see more and more deals like this after Beauty and the Beast's amazing opening weekend. They're going to try and get more live action fairy tales or like fantasy films into production. This would also probably be a musical. I don't know. Stephen Gaghan has never directed a musical, but neither has Guy Ritchie, and he's doing Aladdin. So we'll see. And Robert Downey Jr. can sing. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day has nothing to do with the Oscars, although it does include an Oscar winner. And that's that Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron, the Oscar winner, are making a romantic comedy together that just got picked up for distribution by Lionsgate Summit, and Summit's going to distribute it. Now, Lionsgate is riding pretty high, actually, speaking of the Oscars, because they did so well with both La La Land and Hacksaw Ridge. But this is going to be, they're hoping for box office here, although they certainly got box office with both those films, actually. But this film is called Flarsky, and Seth Rogen plays an unemployed journalist down on his luck who pursues his former babysitter, who he had a crush on, but she now happens to be one of the most powerful unattainable women in the world. Classic Seth Rogen. There is an age difference that works here, 34 to 41. They actually look the same age to me, though, and I don't know why Charlize Theron want to play up being older than Seth Rogen, but hopefully it's a really solid script. It's written by Dan Sterling, not Seth Rogen, interestingly enough, who's written for The Girls, The Office, King of the Hill, and Seth Rogen's The Interview, that film with James Franco, which hurt a lot of people's careers, and Sony. And then it'll be directed by Jonathan Levine, who has his own relationship with Sony, actually. He directed 50-50 with Seth Rogen and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt was suffering from cancer. Warm Bodies, that wonderful zombie romance with Nicholas Hoult. There's so many Nicholases, sorry. And then also the upcoming Snatched, which looks very good with Amy Schumer and Goldie Hawn. I like Jonathan Levine. This whole project seems pretty good to me. And both stars, Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron, are producing. Seth Rogen really needs a win here. The Interview messed up his mojo. He was doing very well, and then he has not been able to recover so far, at least when he's on camera. The Night Before, Neighbors 2, didn't do well. Sausage Party did well, but again, that was an entirely different animal. It was an R-rated animated movie, although it never materialized during the Oscar and awards race as it had hoped to. That was see, sometimes you run an aggressive Oscar campaign and it don't get you nowhere. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, the viewer question comes from Boston Peterson. That's an awesome name. So Boston Peterson says, "Hey, Grace, I have a question for Morning Movie News because I think it's important to hear this from you." I appreciate it. I've said it before, but I'm going to reiterate it. We're an Oscar-centric episode. So Boston says, "Do you think the Academy doesn't like animated movies? I see in a lot of interviews when someone mentions animation, they act like they don't care or it isn't real film. Do you think the Academy doesn't care for animated movies except Best Animated Feature, or do you think they do care? Also, good job on Morning Movie News. It makes me excited to get up and get ready for the day because I get to hear Morning Movie News." That's such a kind thing to say, Boston Peterson. Your name is so awesome. So your name is fun for me to say. So today you're a part of Morning Movie News, and I think your question is excellent, and it allows me to clarify a little bit here. Now, I think they don't even care about Best Animated Feature. The Hollywood Reporter does something where they do blind Oscar ballots every year, and they interview Oscar voters, and they talk to them about their votes. And on a number of ballot interviews, the voter said, "I didn't watch any of the animated features that were sent to me, so I'm not voting in that category." I think that's horrible. So I think that makes it pretty clear that they just don't see it, that this doesn't work. And I think for that reason, that sometimes people are like, well, why don't we have a blockbuster category, right? Because they can never get into the Best Picture race. Well, I think it would have the same problem that Best Animated Feature does. None of the voters would watch it. Nobody would care. I mean, how many people say, "Oh, Best Animated Feature," when they're promoting their movie? Few, because they know it's not really that big of an accomplishment. It's very political. They go to the biggest studio, the biggest name. Thankfully, Zootopia did win this year. But they usually vote for what they heard of, or the kids that they know in their life have talked about. It's just really a shame. So I think that the animated feature category, quite frankly, should be done away with, and I don't think we should have a blockbuster category because of exactly what's happened with animation. Now, occasionally, a animated movie does get nominated for Best Picture. The original Beauty and the Beast in 1991 was the very first, and then Pixar's had 2, Up and then Toy Story 3. And that, if they didn't have the animated feature category, maybe it would be a little bit more of a chance that with 10 slots, up to 10 slots, animated movies could get in there more often. And also, blockbuster movies, Avatar was nominated, The Dark Knight came very close, Deadpool almost made it. Let's get in the actual category, especially because it has so many slots, because of the way they expanded it, because actually of the Dark Knight snub, fascinatingly enough. But it didn't work because Academy voters just don't like animation and they don't like blockbusters, and there's nothing you can do about it except kind of shift the demographics of the voters. But that, isn't going to happen overnight. Although I think Moonlight to some degree shows you a little bit of that already. So the other theory is that La La Land wasn't as loved as everyone said, so it didn't have enough first round votes. Basically, you rank a couple, you can rank you don't have to rank all of them, but you can rank 3 to 5 maybe. And so if La La Land was mostly like 2s and 3s for people, it's not going to get it a win. So anyway, I do want to finally wrap up by saying, Boston Peterson and everybody listening or watching, sorry, I'm recording this the night before because I'm going to be out of the office in the morning, so I'm a little punchy. But anyway, with the other categories, even there, some of the blind Oscar interviews said, I didn't watch any of the movies here either. And I think that you shouldn't be able to vote unless you go to screenings that are held by the Academy and someone checks you off a list that you were there and make sure you don't sneak out and you watch the whole movie, or at least just sleep through it at the theater. Because I think this is just horrible. Sending it to people, they clearly don't watch it. You don't have to watch all the nominees, okay? Because the nominees to be nominated, like all the contenders, I guess you can say. But when you get to the final, the final contenders, the official contenders that are nominated, you gotta watch them, or you can't vote in that section. And if you don't, and I would say you have to have a certain number of categories that you qualify for, and for the big ones, you have to watch the movies. Like, you have to watch all the Best Picture contenders, and like the acting and the directing and the screenwriting categories. You got to watch them. And if you didn't, if you do it like maybe more than 1 year, you're not a voter anymore. There should be some culpability. I mean, this is so important to people's careers, and to the bottom line for films and also for posterity, the movies that are remembered, that you would think the Academy would take the voting rules a little bit more seriously. I mean, it's a shame the voters don't take it more seriously, but as we all know from all instances in society, if you give people an inch, they'll take a mile, right? So, I think that it would be great that Academy voters would police themselves and be responsible. That's clearly not something they're going to do. So it falls upon the Academy to do so. Although they can't even get the envelopes right. So I guess first things first. So that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories, the viewer question from Boston Peterson, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions, of course, that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.